and welcome to my channel, AB Make It Artwork, where we do what we do to make that artwork for you. And if you're new to my channel, maybe hit that subscribe button. Join the AB Creative crew. We do sketchy art things. Hello and welcome to the 1st of November. November usually means that we are now doing Huevember. And I figured I should probably stick with doing Huevember because I didn't do Inktober because I was really busy moving throughout the month of October. So if you're new to Huevember, throughout the month there is one particular hue. You can choose all the different shades and tones of that hue, and do it in any medium, but stick with the one main hue throughout any of all of your pieces. Throughout the month, I am going to be following a friend's prompt list that they made, which they called Lorevember, in which she just listed a bunch of different lore-related creatures and stuff, which you can see in the right. I have all the ones that I'm doing highlighted. So we're here for the first day, and we're going to be talking about some werewolves. Whoa! Yeah, spoops don't end in October, yo. There's a lot of different mythology in regards to werewolves. A lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about comes from a source on Listverse from the 10 steps in the evolution of werewolf lore. So if you want to read that for yourself, I'm going to be paraphrasing a lot of this stuff. I'll have that linked in the description down below. So there's a lot of different variants on werewolf lore. There's the mostly European, Eurocentric of the idea of man turns into werewolf, man-werewolf, man-wolf hybrid, you know, the lycanthrope, lycanthropy, and it being a curse or affliction. There are some different variants depending on sources, like Dungeons & Dragons has werebears. In Asian cultures, there are were-tigers and were-foxes, which sound very similar to kitsune, but kitsune are their own little thing. Little shape-shifting devils they are. But yeah, we're gonna mostly stick with the wolf-man variant hybrid, the lycanthrope. And it's sourced that the earliest myths in regards to like werewolf stories is in the Epic of Gilgamesh. And the story's about the goddess Ishtar being enraged with one of her suitors. Like, she's very annoyed, she's very miffed, she's tired of this man's shit. And this suitor is a shepherd, and she decides to turn him into a wolf, which is the enemy of sheep. And because he is a wolf and the natural predator of his sheep, his dogs tear him to bits. Now you gotta wonder what a guy did to get a goddess that mad, but that ain't the first time that's happened in goddess-related folklore. Now, the second earliest myth that most people source is the Greek mythology in regards to the Arcadian king Lycan, which is the source word for lycanthropy. Now, in this story, in this Greek mythology, which, you know, the Greeks, their stories tend to shift from person to person, depending on who's telling you and what time of the day. And in this story, Zeus was dicking around on Earth like he usually does. But he was dicking around on Earth for a particular purpose. And this purpose was to exterminate after testing all of humanity. Now, Zeus was going to decide to get rid or have a mass cull of humanity. But in order to see who was worthy of like surviving this mass cull, he decided to see if they could recognize his divinity. So he went down in human form into the kingdom of Arcadia, and for the most part, everyone recognized him. And when they recognized him, they threw themselves at his feet to worship him and give him praise, and these people weren't marked for death. So most people survived this test. Now, King Lycan of Arcadia decided that he wasn't sure if this was the real Zeus or not, and in order to find out whether or not if this be Zeus, he decided to test Zeus by doing something that normally Zeus does not appreciate, which is acts of cannibalism. And so King Lycan decided to kill one of his slaves, boil him up, and then serve this servant to Zeus. And Zeus, being a god, saw through the ruse right away and rage table flipped that whole setup with a lightning bolt. Now, I told you I'm going to paraphrase it how I want to. So enraged by this grievous insult, and again, this depends on which mythos you're talking about, he chased away King Lycan and possibly his 2 sons and turned them to wolves. Now, some variants say that King Lycan just went mad, having been chased off by Zeus. He was just cursed with a malady of madness that made him want to act like a wolf. Other versions say he actually was turned into a wolf with his 2 sons. And like I said, the Greeks. It just depends on who you hear it from, where you heard it. Now, there are some other lores that are on this really cool list. And some of them are in regards to different mythologies. Now, in some German mythos, people purposely sought to have lycanthropy or turn into a wolf, and they could do it with these magical belts. And these magical belts were usually made of like a wolf pelt, and when the wearer wore this belt, it would turn them into a wolf, and they could run around doing wolf stuff. And I think there's one story in which one of the ways that you could dispel this enchantment of which a person became a wolf was to just throw shiny metal at them, and this would dispel the magic of the belt. And in one instance, there was a farmer that threw some shiny coin at a werewolf that was bothering his produce, and he finds out, oh shoot, that's my neighbor, that's the woman neighbor from next door, what the heck? And she begs him, like, in her naked, not wolf state, to not tell her secret, to not let anyone knows. But I mean, if you're gonna go around bugging your neighbors as a werewolf, someone's gonna find out eventually. And yeah, eventually word does get out, and she's probably punished, but source doesn't really tell whether or not she gets punished or not for indecent wolfing around. Now, there's this one really fun poem that they share. They don't share the poem, they kind of paraphrase the story of Bisclavret, or Bisclavret. And this is a story about a man with the mythology that if one was afflicted with the curse of lycanthropy, one could go back to their human form by putting on their human clothes. And in the story, it talks about a baron, Bisclavret, I may be butchering that, and how his wife finds out that he's a werewolf and decides to steal his clothes and run away to marry another man, marry a knight. And this poor baron, he survives the woods for a year on his own until like the king's hunting party comes around. Eventually, he becomes good friends with the king, meets up with the wife and the knight that married his cheating wife, and tries to attack both of them. And the king, thinking, whoa, this wolf has not attacked anyone ever, and we're really good friends. These people must have done something really bad to my wolf companion. And the king decides to like take the wife, take the knight, and throw them in a prison cell. And they confess, well, the wife confesses that she stole her husband's clothes and prevented him from turning back into a human, and then he's a werewolf. And eventually, the guy gets his clothes back and he's back to human form, and he and the king, good friends. Now, I think the interesting part about how the mythos changed, because that last one was just a poem that someone made, but there are some inspirations from some Celtic folklore in which the idea that you could change back if you had your clothes, or if a loved one gives you your clothes, with honesty and courage and caring love for you, just pure love, no fear in their heart, that could reverse your lycanthropy curse. But it was really interesting to see how the Dark Ages took the mythos of the werewolf and kind of put some of the modern spins on it, like the idea that eventually werewolves, if they die, could become vampires and then became somehow synonymous with vampire lore. But I thought it was really interesting that in some earlier werewolf mythos that the church had authority to curse people with lycanthropy. So if someone was enough of a sinner, I guess, they could decide that in order to atone for your sins, or that you are so damned that you just can't atone for your sins, you are now cursed with being a werewolf. And priests somehow had the magical power to do that. And in other instances, people could be accidentally cursed with the case of lycanthropy if they were born on Christmas Eve or on Christmas. And this ideal comes from the blasphemy of people being born on Christmas Eve and Christmas, because it detracts from the gift of God and the nativity and the virgin birth, which today kind of sounds stupid, but this kind of mythos inspired the Werewolf in Paris book, in which a guy was born on Christmas Eve and happened to be cursed with lycanthropy. Yeah, there are planes that fly around here from time to time, but it's really interesting in the end. Like, eventually, like, there was the ways to kill a werewolf during the Renaissance was you could kill it just like any other person, but the church, I guess, decided to add more mythos and folklore, mixing in some of the Romani folklore of vampires and adding silver being a weakness and other stuff. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed hearing all this rambling about werewolves and whatnot. If you want to follow me on any of my other social media, I've got a DeviantArt, I got an Instagram, I got a Tumblr, I got a Twitter, and I got a Pinterest that I gotta certainly use way more often for resources. I hope that you enjoyed this, that you're having a wonderfully creative day, wherever the heck you are. And that if you want to join in, you can follow the prompt on my Instagram. Save it for yourself. As always, make sure to do what you do to make that artwork for you. Lots of love!